Welcome to Healing Whole, the podcast. I'm your host, Callie. I'm a certified personal trainer and fitness instructor. I also happen to be extremely passionate about holistic living. With close to 10 years of experience, I've worked with clients from all walks of life. I also know a healthy and holistic lifestyle can be a little overwhelming. I'm here to break it down for you and take you on my journey to healing whole. Remember, the materials and content within this podcast are intended as general information only and are not to be considered a substitute for medical advice or treatment. Hello, and welcome to episode 30 of Healing Whole, the podcast. I am here with Bradshaw, who is a spiritual advisor, empath, and medium. And today we're going to talk about a topic that is kind of close to both of our hearts. And this is going to be part one of two. We're going to actually have two episodes and about two totally different things, but also kind of linked. So today we're going to talk about the narcissist empath relationship. But first off, I want to ask, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I like that the weather's nice and sunny outside. So yeah, I'm doing good.
So we should preface in saying this is like week 3, I think, or going into week 4 of COVID-19. So we are doing this via Zoom. Things are getting crazy in my house. So you might hear my kids, you might hear her kids. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
But we're just going with the flow. And I'm actually in my basement right now and I'm embarrassed by the backdrop, but this is what my looks like because I just moved in. So
yeah.
But anyway, the first question I always ask is, how did you get into this holistic way of living? So like, how did you start your spiritual journey?
Well, it actually started about, I'm going to say 5 years ago now. It was a little bit before I got pregnant with my daughter, and I started having panic attacks, and I don't know, things like started feeling different from me. My diet started to change like naturally, but I didn't understand what was going on. And then I was in, I don't know if this is like the right episode to say it, but I was in the mental hospital for 7 days. And then after that, everything started changing. I came out and I just felt like that that wasn't right. Like something else was going on. And I kept researching like how to live with depression, what to do with anxiety. And then I came across this article, Empath, and then like everything just like fell into place after that.
Okay.
And I just started doing research about everything, and then like um, things I remember coming up as a little girl spiritually, and just everything just started happening.
So that's where you've been on a spiritual journey for a long time, but you kind of awoke to it after being in the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
It started after getting out of the hospital, and then about I think it was a month later I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, and then like things started happening really fast. And I always say like she's the little spiritual being that like helped me get deeper into it.
Okay. Um, so yeah, we're going to talk about in the next episode mental health related to spiritual awakening, but this one I kind of have a feeling why I know that you were in the hospital.
hmm
But was it related? So you had a narcissist in your life.
I did for about 4.5 to 5 years in a relationship. And then after leaving, he was still causing chaos in my life. So I want to say the whole entire thing for about maybe 7 to 8, maybe 10 years of him being in my life. Even though we weren't together, he was still causing issues and chaos in my life.
Yeah. And was the was a reason you went to the hospital, did it have to do with him?
Some of it, yeah, a lot of it because of the feelings that were coming up, and I wasn't dealing with Well, first I didn't know that that's what he was. So like I had a lot of trauma during that time with him, and I was suppressing it. And I can remember like exact little moments where something came up and I didn't want to deal with it because it was too painful. And I think my depression just got so bad after that.
Hmm.
And I remember just thinking, I don't want to be on this planet anymore. I want to go back home. I don't know where home is, but I want to go back home. I can't take it here. And I remember just like feeling like that for a while. Um, and then I had my son, and I'm just like, I have to do something to get there. There's some, I don't know. I had this feeling in my gut that something was wrong, but it wasn't the depression. Like something else was going on. But I didn't, like, I wasn't into spirituality. I didn't know that that was happening. So I was like looking for like self-help things, and then like this ad came up about like mental institutions, or I forget the exact uh, facility it was. And then I looked for them in my area, and I actually went to the one in Greensburg.
Okay. So is that where you stayed for 7 days?
Yeah,
So you kind of
yeah,
went voluntarily,
I did.
which
Yeah,
I went voluntarily as well. So I think there are two different ways. Well, I'm sure there are many different ways. The two ways I know about is that you can get admitted, or you can admit yourself.
yeah,
And I would like to make clear to people, if they're, this is sort of off topic, but as we both have been there, um, I actually was speaking to someone recently about being in the hospital. But if you have children, if I don't know what it is if you get admitted. I think it's the same. But I know if you admit yourself, there's no chance that you're going to lose your kids. They're not going to take your children away just because you
no,
say that I need help.
no, they don't. Um, I actually set the whole thing up before. So I actually called, and they said that they didn't know if they had room yet, but they still wanted me to come in to go over things and to ask questions and kind of like get ready for when I was able, like there was a room available. So like I kind of set everything up between my now husband and family members to care for my son back and forth while I was there. And I kind of explained to family. I didn't tell the whole thing what was going on, but I kind of like say like, you know, I need some help. I need to go here. This is what's going on. And so they kind of knew that it wasn't just a shock in the face like, here, take my kid because I have to go somewhere for a week. I kind of got everything ready, and it was kind of a tough time. I remember being embarrassed about it. um, I remember thinking that like, how did I end up here? Why am I here? There was just a lot of questions and a lot of embarrassment around the whole thing, especially with family members. It was just because I always feel like, you know, I have to be like this strong person, and I have to take care of everyone else, but I'm not allowed to have a weak moment. That's how
Mhm.
I felt back then. And it was just like, I can't let them see me like break down and be weak and get help. So I was kind of there, but actually wanting to get help because I was tired of living the way I was living, feeling, thinking, everything.
Yeah. That's kind of, I went for my daughter as well. Or after my daughter was born, it took me that long, but I went for her. Um,
Yeah.
and I was tired, just in general. Like I was just tired. I just didn't
Yeah.
want to be here anymore because I was so exhausted from all the feelings I was feeling, from all the emotions, from just living life. I was just so tired.
It's very draining,
Mhm.
very draining, and it sucks all like life and energy out of you.
Yeah.
Like some days I would lay in bed all day, and I'm like, then I like get on myself like, you just laid in bed all day, like what are you doing? And then that whole thing would start, and then it's really draining, and it sucks like everything out of you.
Yeah. It's exhausting. And there is an embarrassment factor to it, which there shouldn't but there's a stigma against it. And hopefully, people, one day it'll be over, but like people like us talking about it can help at least one person maybe to not feel so embarrassed. Because
Yeah.
I know personally that on the other side is beautiful once you get past all that. And I'm sure you've
Mhm.
experienced the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and I had, family was very supportive. Um, my now husband was very supportive, and even whenever I came out of it, um, well, he actually came to visit me almost the first 3 days I wasn't allowed to have any visitors, but after that, he actually came like every day to visit, like gave me encouragement, and some family members called and like make sure I was okay. And I remember the first couple days I was only allowed to have phone calls, and I just bawled my eyes out because I wanted to leave.
Hmm.
Like half of me wanted to leave because it was uncomfortable, it was unknown, and it was new. And but I didn't understand, like, I wasn't processing these feelings. All I saw was I want to get out. Like, okay, I don't want this now. But then the other half of me was like, we have to do this. Like, we got to get through this. We got to get help. We got to see what's going on. Like, we can't live like this anymore.
It's scary too, just really like how they didn't, we were allowed to, when I was there for 3 days, two different times though. And we were allowed to talk on the phone, but it was only supposed to be a certain amount of time and so
Yeah.
many times a day. Um, but it's hard because it's kind of like right now what we're going through. You have to be by
Yeah.
yourself, with your thoughts, with your feelings. And that's scary.
It is. Yeah.
I'm used to busying, even now, still. Like, I have had a fluctuation of emotions from like sad one minute, I'm happy the next minute, I'm anxious the next minute, it's like I'm angry the next minute, I'm having all these emotions. And I was doing like a mini virtual retreat yesterday, and it hit me that I am not busy like I'm still busy, but I'm not busy like I'm used to being busy. I have a lot more time to sit with my thoughts and my
Yeah.
emotions. And I think that's why they're crazy. I don't want to say crazy, but they're so overwhelming because there's just so much happening right now. And I'm actually having to sit with my emotions as opposed to
Yeah.
pushing them to the side.
Yeah. And I think we need to learn how to not be afraid of our thoughts that come in and just accept them. Like if you're feeling angry, okay, I'm angry. It's okay to be angry. Like
Mhm.
you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be sad. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed, especially what's going on right now. Like you're all these emotions are going to come up. But I know cuz for me like it in the beginning it did get scary, and then like I just learned I'm just like, okay, I can't go anywhere. So I'm angry about that, like angry that I can't go to the thrift store to take my mind off of myself for a minute. So let's just accept that we're angry and see where that goes. And usually, within a little bit of time, I find out the reason why I'm angry and I just accept it, deal with it, and then move on about my day.
Mhm.
Try not to sit in it so much because I don't want my whole day to revolve around me being angry. And then my whole day like gets ruined and I just try not to go there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important to feel the feelings and also know that they're temporary.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts forever. I used to feel feelings were like I would get in such a suicidal thought mode because I just thought that these feelings were going to last forever. Like the
Yeah.
feeling of being sad and depressed and lonely and just miserable was never going to ease off. And now when I get those feelings, I haven't had a suicidal thought in like 6 months, I think. Um,
Oh, that's so good.
I know, I'm so
Yeah.
happy. Very,
Yeah.
very proud of myself.
Yeah.
So with a lot of help, but
Yeah. Well, we
um,
need help. We can't. I think that's another thing too. Like we I think we get afraid to ask for help and to lean on people,
mhm.
but I think it's important to understand that sometimes you do need help. There's nothing wrong with it. It's nothing to be shameful. Like we do need help sometimes.
I think it's admirable to reach out for help.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think it's something to look up to. So, um, now we talked about that, but tell me I feel like I'm jumping from one thing to another, but it's all going to come together, I believe. But so today we're going to talk about a relationship of a narcissist and an empath. And I would say that we're both, I think a lot of people are. Do you think most people are empaths and they just kind of like shut it off?
I do. Right now, currently, I believe that like some people are more open to it and their empath gift is more stronger.
Mhm.
And then I believe some people just like don't want anything to do with it. They just block it off. And then there's some people like that just, I don't know, just want nothing to do with it
Yeah.
or ignore it.
Yeah.
But I believe someone has it. Everyone has it to some degree.
I would agree with that. Um, so what's a narcissist to you?
So I would have to describe one as being very, very charming, um, very respectful, manipulative, like behind closed doors. Like there's always this. Uh, I don't. It's like they're normal on the outside, but then like behind the mask, there's just this icky, mucky um, being behind there. I guess I don't like using the word evil, but right now that's how I feel. They're just um, I guess
I,
that would be the word I would have to use right now on because in the beginning they're very charming and very respectful and put on this mask. Um, but then it slowly starts to change. So very manipulative, but very charming at the same time.
I they definitely, in my opinion, put on a show
Yes, yes,
as far as being out in public and what you show on social media, um, and all that. w-
it's
I'm
hard
just
to put
think,
them into words,
yeah,
like into one word.
I'm reflecting right now about how I've been drawn so many times to a narcissist.
I would say in the beginning, like when you first meet one, it's just like they're like this, like they come in as your hero,
Hmm.
as your superhero, and um, like it's what you've been waiting for. So I don't know if that kind of gives a little direction on to what it is or what they are.
I think also then I hate when, in my opinion, when they have you where they want you, then everything changes and
Mhm.
switches. Um, but only and like behind closed doors. I don't think that
Yes.
out in public. I think that they're very good at putting on a show that they are this perfect person,
Mhm. It
and that
seems like overly done.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah. So, you had a relationship with a narcissist.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah. Sure.
So, what was it like for you being with a narcissist? Because I know, I definitely know I've been with two,
Yeah.
um, if not more than that on the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
But for me, it was this exactly what you described. They were exactly what I needed at the time. They saved me
It's like
when
they
I needed.
smell it. Like they
Oh,
sniff you out.
yes.
Uh-huh. Like they have that gift to like sniff out people that are like vulnerable and like need help and just like in distress. Like, yeah.
So why do you think that they connect with empaths?
Well, I think they see empaths as a person very, loyal and wanting to help and just like in my opinion, they know how an empath cares so deeply and it's like their way in. And then I feel like knowing that they can just do what they please, and that empath is always like at that place where they don't want to like hurt people's feelings, or they don't, they want to love them and nourish them and see the good in them, and they know that, and I think they take advantage of that. um yeah, I think that would happen, because I know whenever I first met mine, in the very, very beginning, I just had like this feeling, like whenever the first time I was even talking to him, I just had this feeling like like I wanted to vomit, but I didn't understand why. I was being hard on myself. I'm like, why am I like, I'm not like this with people, and I thought I was being judgy, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like here's this nice like young man, why am I like feeling like this? And I thought, well, maybe it's because, stuff I went through in my childhood, I'm not seeing like, the good of it. And he was very, very charming. Even when he came around my family, he was always like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I would have these little like moments where I'd be like, you don't talk like that to your own family. Like I'd have these little back and forth, but I would just like disregard them. And then it was like that for about maybe almost 2 years, where I call it like the love bombing. Like he would all like for on my birthday, we weren't even like completely dating yet, but like on my birthday, he like, I remember, was so upset because he didn't get his gift to me, and I'm like, oh my god, like it's just a birthday, like it's fine. But he was like overly upset because he didn't like give me a gift on my birthday. And I thought that was kind of strange that he was like trying too hard to get it right there on time. Like, and then throughout the relationship, I remember I wanted to leave him, but I just felt like, I don't know, I was just like, something had a hold of me. Like, I don't know what it was, but like something just had a hold of me and I couldn't. And then I remember him just like looking at me, and then like I would look in his eyes and I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't leave him. He needs me. And then I would always be like, well, I would always go the extra mile in trying to get him, to what I seen his potential, like deep down.
Yes.
And he would never, I would always get disappointed. But I always like wanted to try. Like, you can be this, like, oh my God, you have so much potential. And, he was a great artist drawing. So I like set up, an interview with an art school and all this stuff. And I would always get disappointed, but I'd always want to get my hands in there to try to like fix him.
Yeah, I think two important things that you said. Um, we always look for the good in others,
Mhm.
and we always want to fix them. But like,
Yeah.
it's hard to leave because you feel like you owe them something almost.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I was definitely the same in that the first one I dated was super abusive, like physically, emotionally, mentally abusive in any way you could think of.
Yeah.
Um, but he put on a front around other people when he could. Um, he was less good at hiding it, but he did something. We would get in fights and he'd always buy me something to make up for it. So I know one time we were dating for like 10 months. And I only know that because he went into the store. He went into Walmart and told me to stay in the car. And he bought me 10 fish for each month that we were dating. Who the F won
Yeah.
10 fish? And he was so proud of himself and thought it was such a great gift. Well, I ended up accidentally killing the fish, but I think subconsciously I killed them on purpose
Yeah.
because I put them in the water too fast. But
Yeah.
like, don't, just things like that, like manipulation tools.
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
constantly there trying to fix him. And because I did see potential in him, and especially with the other one I was with, I saw so much potential in him. Like, I genuinely, deep down in my heart, know that he could be a good person
Mhm.
if he wasn't so sick. And that's just how I can refer to him, as he's sick.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They are very like manipulative, and they get in your mind so meticulously and like rearrange stuff so well and so slowly that you have no idea what's going on. I remember mine like started out as like little jokes, and like little jokes with my body or little jokes like with my wardrobe, and it started out like that. And but then in public it was just like, oh, like look at her, like she looks so well put together and she's this and she's that, and I'm just like, wait a minute, like, but you just like said shit about, oh, can I like
Yes, you can
about,
curse. You can curse.
okay, about my outfit, you know 10 minutes ago. It was like, and then like I would get very confused, or like even with like the gaslighting, they do it so well. It's, I remember talking to mine one time and I was just like telling him what I needed from him and telling him what he wasn't giving to me and how he's hurt me in the past. And he was just like, well, I don't see it that way. I don't think it's that bad. And then, like, right in the next sentence, it was like, but if I hurt you, then I'm sorry. And I'm just like, like, you could feel like your mind, like, just swirling around, like, what is going on?
It
And
almost wants to explode.
yes,
Like your
that's
brain
how I
wants to
felt.
explode.
I felt every time, like when our relationship progressed so far, I was always on edge. I was like anxiety. I felt like I was walking on eggshells. I just, I felt like I was going nuts. And like, I was always just, I was mad. I was sad. I was upset. I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, what happened to this guy that I met in the beginning? Like, where's like the charming, the loving, like, and there was no support, none at all. There was a couple dramatic events that happened in my family, and I remember calling him and getting no support. It was just like a, I don't even want to say a fake support, but it was just like hollow. There was like nothing behind it. And I remember like thinking like, I like, this is the time when I need you, and you're like not available, but you're trying to mask it as if you are, or like you're doing something to make me feel better or to support me and to soothe me, and but you're not.
Hmm.
So that was very frustrating. It was like, I could describe it as the first year and a half, it was like amazing with little like hints, but I didn't listen. Then after that, like, the easiest way I can describe it is like living in hell. But then in public, it's completely different.
Hmm.
And even like you know, with him being there, like coming to see me for a couple days and then disappearing for like a month, and he would make excuses like, oh, well, I don't have a car anymore and my phone broke, and I would accept these excuses. Like, he programmed me to accept them, to accept the yelling, and like I would be talking normal like I am now, and then all of a sudden he would just start screaming and yelling at me, and I'm just like, what did I do, you know?
Mine just made me not even the first one just was, it was a long time ago. I was in high school. Was just
uh,
completely irrational. Yelled at me all the time. I was terrified out of my mind.
yeah.
Um, the other one never said anything. Would make comments and digs about like what you said about your outfit or whatever,
Yeah.
to basically make themselves feel better. Um, but I would just be like, okay, what about this? What about that? Mine left all the time. So like
Hmm.
every couple months he would leave for a month and
And
then
isn't it like
disappear.
amazing how we're programmed to accept him leaving and accept the excuses? And then, like, that's what creates like the trauma bonds, because you're just like always chasing
Mm.
and wanting him to come back. And then when he comes back, it's like you give him the right to reset the relationship and start things all over again. And then when you get to a certain point, it happens again. And I'm
It
just like,
always
I
happens
get,
again.
yeah. And I get so intrigued about how they rearrange things and can program you to accepting that behavior as normal.
Do you feel like, and I know I understand the idea that no one can make us feel anything that we don't let ourselves feel.
Mhm.
But it can get very frustrating when you live with a narcissist, um, because their actions, to me, literally drive you crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like he did everything he possibly could to make me feel crazy. Like,
Yeah.
it's when they do stuff and then they say, well, I didn't do that. I don't
Mhm.
know what you're talking about. That
Yep.
didn't happen that way. When you
Yeah.
clearly know that it happened that way.
Yes. And they know that it happened that way, but I think they like seeing the struggle in you to prove that it when they're saying it didn't, they like watching you squirm and watching you go crazy trying to prove to them that it did happen. And I like mine every time I would do that with mine, he would have a little smirk on his face. And I would always be like, "What's the smirk for? Like, what's so funny?" And he's like, "I didn't have a smirk." And
Yeah.
then like I would just start all over again. I would just be like, "Oh my god, like I know you like, I would just I feel like I was going to like explode on it any minute. But I was so terrified and I didn't realize how terrified I was. Well, I think I did, but I think I like ignored it. But then after getting out, and after starting healing, I remember having dreams of seeing his face and feeling my feelings for the first time of how terrified I was of him. And I remember in high school, something happened and we got into a fight. And I remember I went into the guidance counselor and she's like, "Are you afraid to leave him? Like, are you afraid to break up with him?" And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, why would she ask me that? Like, no. And then, like, people all the time would come up to me and be like, "He's abusing you. Like, he's being abusive towards you." Because he would have these little moments where they would slip. And I would just write it off like, no, he's just having a bad day, or like something set him off and he like took it out on me, but it's okay. When in reality, like it's not okay.
Um, yeah. So funny how similar. Um, I'm writing down a question so I don't forget it, but I want to go back to it. Um, yeah, I was also terrified of I wasn't so much terrified of the second one I was with. Um, I was, I don't know why I was so stuck with him. I was just stuck because I didn't think I deserved
Hmm.
anything better, I guess.
Yeah.
With the first one, I
Yeah.
was terrified, and I never realized how scared I was of him till I saw him for the first time after we broke up. It was,
Hmm.
well, right? And it was the first time I had seen him in a very, very long time. I was at work, and he was where I was working, and I ran to the kitchen and started having a panic attack, like sobbing on the floor. Um, and this went on for years. Every time I would see him, I would have a panic attack and have a panic attack. And then the one time, this was just last year, I was in a program and I went, and this is why we have to listen to our intuition 100%.
Hmm.
The entire time I was driving to this program, I called my boyfriend at the time, the one I'm dating now. Um, he was my boyfriend then too last year. But I was like, I don't feel good about going today. I don't feel good about going today. Something is going to happen that's bad. Like, I just
Yeah.
feel really, really bad. He was like, well, I think you should just go. It's probably just your anxiety. I was like, all right, I'll go. So I walked in, I sat down, I looked to my left, smiled at the person, looked to my right, looked down, took a double take, and it was that motherfucker sitting next to me
Oh,
in this program. It was supposed to be my safe place.
yeah.
Um, and I just got up in front of an entire room full of people and was like, I have to go. I have to go. I have to leave right now. I started like, I couldn't breathe. I was having a panic attack. I was sobbing. I ran into my therapist's office and I closed the door and she said, what's going on? And I told her and they had no idea that it was my ex. Um,
Yeah.
and I literally was in a full on panic. And I don't think it hit me because I would have dreams about him too and then be scared the next day.
Hmm.
And I had messaged him and I told him like what you did to me was wrong and this and that. And he had wrote back some things and it always with him, he's a good Christian boy. And I say Christian boy in
Yeah.
quotations because good Christian boy doesn't hang over a banister and do things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't realize how terrified I was of him until that moment, seeing him in person in my safe place.
Yeah.
And then finally it took me until I actually forgave him and I saw him again in our therapist's office. He just walked by and I was with my daughter and I looked at him and I looked back down at Annalise and I was like, I'm okay. It took me like 12 years to forgive him,
Yeah.
if not more than that. But
Yeah.
I I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but because we're talking about how scared we are. But I don't know. Just listen to your intuition for sure because we're
Yeah.
so
And
smart.
that's what I always go back to, because in the beginning, when I very first started talking to him, my gut was just in knots and I wanted to vomit. I felt dirty. Like my skin was crawling, like I felt dirty. And if I always think like if I would have listened to myself, I wouldn't have been in that position. But then I kind of understand that I went through that so I can make something good of it,
Mhm.
and advocating for others. Um, but it to me it's really strange that like whenever we're with them and we write off things that they do, but then the aftermath, whenever we actually leave and start to heal, then the panic attacks start, and all the emotions, like I feel like from we suppressed, are just like coming out, and it's very terrifying to start that process. And I know even still now I don't have them as often, but I'm still working through healing. And at a certain time, it's like a certain time, the same time every night, my heart starts beating and I start feeling the feelings. And every single time, it's a memory of a situation that happened with him coming up. And I
Mhm.
have to literally sit up and tell myself, we are safe now. We're not in that relationship anymore. And I have to process through. And that's really, it's exhausting too. And I think being in a relationship with one and then getting out, like your whole life is just screwed up for a minute.
Mhm.
People think like, oh, you're just depressed, you're lazy, you're this because you can't get out of bed. You're drained, and like you go back and forth in your head beating up on yourself because you were programmed to do, like, to accept that and to be confused and to not trust yourself, and basically your whole identity is just like wiped from the face of the earth. And you're just like, you get out and you're like, oh my god, like who am I? What? Like I remember I had a hard time, like I looked at my husband one day and I'm just like, I don't know you people. Like who are you? Like what is this, my life? And then that itself would give me like anxiety, so I had to like work through that. Like they really get into your head and they really fuck shit up. That's the best way I can explain it. Like, and then I also like, I mean, I understand that like the reason that they're like this, a lot of them, is because their childhood or like their mother relationship, and they're like a little kid inside, and that's the only way they could get attention from their family, father or mother, was to like manipulate them. But then I'm also like on the fence because I'm just like, well, I didn't have that good of a childhood with my parents, and I don't do that, you
Well,
know?
let me ask you this, which is the question I wrote down. I was waiting for the right time to come up. Why? So, for instance, I don't know my biological father. I haven't known him
Mhm.
since I was 2. So, I have a lot of daddy issues that I'm still working through,
Yeah.
and think that I accepted in the past because I don't so much anymore. Accepted crap because of that.
Yeah.
Um,
Or you were trying, I know a lot whenever I can't speak for guys, but I know like as a woman having father issues and mother issues, my needs weren't met.
mhm,
So I was looking for anyone to like, even though I didn't know what I was doing, that's what I was doing.
mhm,
I was looking for someone to fill that that need. And also, my mother was with a few narcissists and in our family. And that just, if you don't break that, that just goes, you're programmed from childhood to accept that and to look for that kind of love.
Mhm.
Well, not love, but
I understand.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of relationship.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So do you feel like you accepted it because of the situations that you went through as a child?
Yeah. Um, that and I was insecure a little bit in high school from things that happened in my childhood, and um, I didn't have needs filled either, and I think I allowed a lot because of that. And
Mhm.
because, I allowed stuff in my childhood also, so I was kind of like programmed to that as
Yeah.
being like normal, acceptable, it's okay. And now I look back at it, I'm just like, holy shit, like none of this is okay. None of that was okay.
I always think now, like, I can't, if it's not acceptable for my daughter, it's not acceptable for me.
Yeah.
Um, so even now, like, my boyfriend and I will get into disagreements. It doesn't happen often. Used to happen a lot more frequently when we're both a lot. We came a long way in our relationship. We both came from like really broken relationships and
Hmm.
just a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
And we had to really learn to grow together. But um, I would look at him and say, "Is this acceptable for your daughter?" And if he would
Mm,
say anything but yes, then we knew that that was something that we needed to work on.
yeah.
But that's how I try to look at things now. Like if it's not acceptable for our kids, then it's not acceptable. Like even my behavior towards him, if
Yeah.
I do something that's not acceptable for the way that we want our daughters to be treated, then it's not. We have to work through it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But it took having a daughter for me to realize that.
Yeah. I I would say things, with what I went through and with my now husband, we went through a similar I'm he didn't really go through a lot of trauma like I did, but like for me not healing and suppressing it, it caused me to behave in a certain way that wasn't acceptable. And I know when I had my daughter, like that started to change too. Like I started to realize things that it wasn't okay, going to therapy. And now we try, if we have a little disagreement, we try to work it out not in front of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We try to go into a different room or not talk about it. Even our parenting has changed, like our whole relationship um, has changed. But there was a period for about a year and a half to 2 years where my behavior was not acceptable because of the trauma I went through and suppressing it.
I was the same.
And yeah.
I was very I just was angry. I was so angry
Mhm.
before I was diagnosed properly, um, and like knew how to cope better. I was just so pissed off at the world. Like, why is my life like this? When I was suicidal, why is my life like this? Why do I deserve this? What did I do to deserve this? I was just
Yeah.
so angry. So I would get so mad at him about everything. And then
Yeah.
he had a lot of insecurity issues. So he would get insecure about things, and then I would get mad, and it was just this
Like
back
this cycle.
horrible cycle.
Yeah.
But we both
Yeah.
healed a lot. We had to take a step away from each other for a long time, and we healed a lot. But I I definitely acted in ways because of the trauma that I had gone through in the past, had acted in ways, and just, you just get so used to something. Like, I was so used to being in abusive relationships, like physically abusive relationships, that I was just waiting for my boyfriend now to hit me, like when we got in fights. And he would tell me, I'm never going to hit you. I'm never going to hit you. But because I was
Yeah.
so trained to think that way, I was waiting for it constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a lot with like my relationship now with my husband. Like in the past, I would get bored
Mhm.
because there was no action, there was no like running, chasing, that kind of thing. And I had to realize that that's not a normal relationship. You don't run after a relationship. Like a true relationship, it can get boring sometimes, but you have to think of, new things to do to spice things up. Like that's normal. Um But I do remember I would get very bored and I would think, oh, like someone else can, do what he can, or someone else
Yeah.
can fulfill my needs because he's not doing it and he's not giving me attention. When reality, like, he's treating me so good, but I can't see it because of that trauma. It's like blocking it. And it was boring to me because I wasn't running after him. I wasn't chasing him. There was no like bickering or anything in the beginning. And so I had to learn um, that that's not a normal relationship to be
I,
running after.
I think learning too that we're worthy of that kind of relationship. Like I didn't feel worthy of a good, healthy relationship.
Yeah, I didn't either. I I always went, even after um my relationship with a narcissist, I seemed like I would always go after or be drawn to or attracted to guys that were emotionally unavailable. Like they were just like kind of like a narcissist, but not like as bad. You know what I mean? Just like unavailable, don't like doesn't give two shits about you, just wants what he wants from it and that's it. And I would always be drawn to those types of men. So after like realizing that I don't like I don't like saying deserve, but like I didn't deserve that and I am worthy of like I deserve to be treated the way how I feel I should be treated.
Mhm.
And I don't I don't know how to explain it. It was very rough healing and realizing all of that. And coming to realize that I'm not garbage. I'm not a piece of shit like I was programmed to believe I was.
Mhm.
And then also realizing that I made a mistake and got involved in a relationship with someone who was manipulative, evil, whatever. That was very hard to accept also.
When do you think you started to heal after that relationship?
I mm, I would say about 3 years ago, whenever I got pregnant with my daughter.
Okay.
Um, that's when I really started to look at things. And then just this past year, I really started to um, research about narcissist behavior and narcissists in general.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was about 3 years ago. I have a son with him, and he came to see him, like uninvited, just showed up. Haven't seen him for like, haven't heard from him for months. And my daughter, I don't even think she was a year yet, maybe almost a year, but I don't think she was a year yet. He showed up and my son was playing in the backyard and swimming with his friends. And I remember I opened the door and seen him and I wanted to run.
Mhm.
My heart started going and my start shaking, like my whole body was just felt like there was this surge of just like bad energy. And I remember thinking like this isn't how you're supposed to feel with someone, like something's wrong, this isn't a good person. And then I just started looking up stuff, sitting with my feelings a little bit and realizing like what he was, and then it started from there.
So, how would you suggest that empaths protect themselves from getting in that kind of situation?
Well, in my opinion, in dealing with my situation, I would have to say you have to trust your gut. You have to. I mean, I know it's we're not taught in this age to be fully comfortable with trusting yourself, but sometimes like your gut knows better than your head.
I think your gut
Because
always knows better than your head.
yes, your head is just like, I mean, the charm will blow your head up and you'll want to like dive, but like your gut is telling you no. And I would say, like, look for certain little red flags. Like whenever something goes down and like you question it, if you have to question it, that's a red flag. Like it, but the biggest thing I would say is just you just have to trust your gut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because like I said, in my situation, my gut was telling me no, and like what I know now, I was feeling his energy and it was horrible, and my gut was like, no, like don't go there. But I didn't listen, and I had needs unfulfilled, and I was just fantasizing about how charming he was, and just didn't listen. I didn't listen to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the very beginning, I had red flags where like I questioned things and I just blew it off. So I would say, yeah, listening to your gut, and then if you have to question any behavior or treatment toward yourself, then you have to go. Like you have to run away.
Yeah, I think listening to your gut is, if something feels off, it's probably off.
Yes. And I've learned that almost every time. And we always try to like, I feel like a lot of empaths, whenever their gut says like something's wrong, you always try to make excuses, or your head tries to make excuses like, well, you know, they're nice this time, or like maybe you're being a little, no, like you just like, we just need this to stop all that, and just, if our gut says like something's off, then let's just listen to that.
Yeah, I think our egos get in the way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely think our egos get in the way, and we start questioning what our intuition is telling us, which I think, we do with a lot of things, not just in this situation, but with so many things. We don't listen to our intuition
Yeah.
because our brains get in the way.
Mhm.
So, um, why would you say it's important for you? Like, why was it so important for you to talk about this today?
Well, I think because I want other women who are in relationships like that, or suspect they're in relationships or have been there, that I want them to know that they're not the only one. And I don't want them to feel ashamed or scared to talk about their story. If I can just help one person with like coming out and telling like a very private part of myself, then I would be extremely overwhelmed, like with joy.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I know how a narcissist works and what they do, and it honestly breaks my heart. I just, I don't want anyone to have to go through that, or to feel like they're alone in doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and healing. And there is like, you can heal, but you have to choose. You have to take the step, and you have to choose to heal. And like want people to know that it gets better after. You're not always like gloom and doom, and like once you leave and you go no contact and you start healing, it gets so much better. I don't want them to feel like they're trapped, or like they don't have anyone to turn to, or they're alone.
What are some like, what's, besides getting away, what do you
Hmm.
think would be the first step that you took or that you would suggest for other people to take?
I would think well, to stop rationalizing, and to accept the situation that you're in, accept that it's not a fit relationship, and then do what you feel is necessary to move away.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's you have to get the law enforcement involved, whether you have to pack up your shit and run away, like do what's best for you in your situation. But you have to realize and accept and open your eyes to what's going on. Accept the truth. Don't try to sugarcoat it, put a blanket over it, and make it sweet when it's sour.
Mm-hmm. I think those are all good tips. And then, always, I think, don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
who it is.
Whether it's a family member, it's like the law, or a friend or a neighbor, even if you don't know, like you don't know that person, like if you need help, go to whoever is available to help you and that you feel comfortable with in helping you, or just tell them like what's going on and that you need help.
Yeah.
And because I understand, like, I was fortunate enough not to get physically abused by my narcissist, but it was very like emotionally and spiritually and mentally abusive. But I understand that some do physically abuse, and that can be very terrifying in asking for help. But I think that's the first step, is to like is to ask for help, because being in that relationship, you can't do it on your own. You can't. It's very, well, in my opinion, it's very hard to, when you're in so much fear, to get out by yourself. You kind of need someone to help you and to guide you along and to
Mhm.
get you out of there and help you to take steps to move forward.
I think it's also important to emphasize that it doesn't matter if you're getting physically abused, emotionally abused, spiritually abused, sexually abused. It's abuse.
Yes, it's all abuse, and no one is greater or lesser than the other.
Yes, 100%. If you're getting
Mhm.
abused in any way, shape, or form by anyone, you have the right to walk away and to
Yeah,
remove yourself from that toxic situation. Please don't think just because, well, Sally gets beat up every night, that you being forced to have sex every night is less than, or you being forced to have sex once is less than, or
yeah,
the one day they tell you, don't wear that outfit, it makes you look slutty. Like, uh, none of it's okay. It doesn't
no,
matter if it's once or every day, it's not okay.
yeah, yeah.
So, is there anything else on this topic that I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Um, I don't think, but I do have a question for you.
Okay.
Because I haven't talked, and I've talked to women that have been emotionally, spiritually, um, mentally abused, but I haven't talked to anyone that's been physically abused
Mm-hmm.
by one. So how did you realize that it wasn't right and take the steps to get out, being so fearful?
I knew it wasn't right from the beginning, but he was a senior and I was a sophomore. And like you said, you felt icky. Like, this is personal, but like when we would have sex, I never wanted to have sex with him, but he was my first. I thought I had to marry
Yeah,
him. I thought I had to be with him for the rest of my life.
yeah,
When we would have sex, I felt dirty after every single time. I never wanted to do it. There was like, still to this day, the smell of, this is so much information, but the smell of a condom makes me sick to my stomach,
yeah,
because that's all I can think about is him and just feeling disgusted. Um,
yeah,
but like, I knew it wasn't right the whole time, but I was scared, and he alienated me from all of my friends. Like, he went up and threatened one of my best friend, she's still my best friend to this day, went up and threatened her in school and said, she's not your friend anymore. You don't talk to her anymore.
yeah,
Um, and I was so scared that he was going to beat my other friends up, because my other friends were coming to my defense and like wanting to confront him. But I was so scared because he was, this is going to sound really mean, but he was such a psycho that,
yeah,
like, he's the kind of person that would kill somebody when he gets in those rages. Um, so I was scared that he would hurt someone else. So I felt that I would take the hurt instead of them getting hurt.
yeah,
Um, and then I know I wasn't friends with my one friend because I wasn't allowed to be. Um, and then this other girl came along, and we would ride home from school together sometimes. Was this when he was out of high school? I think it was when he was out of high school. I think that's what got me away, is that he was out of high school. We spent the summer together, but I also started spending other time with other people. And I was starting to realize, like, oh, this isn't okay. This isn't okay. And I got a little bit of freedom.
yeah,
And I don't remember exactly how. I just know I was hanging out with this one girl, and she was really there for me and was like, it's not right that he doesn't let you do things, this and that. I just basically went from one codependent relationship to another. It wasn't healthy, but it got me out of that.
Yeah.
But I remember one day I broke up with him. I was at home, and the girl encouraged me. We weren't in a romantic relationship. We were just friends. But the girl encouraged me. She was like, "You can do it. You can do it, Callie. You can do it." And I was terrified, and I just said, "It's over. It's over." And he was at a church up the street from my house because he was a good Christian boy and he went to church. He ran to my house from church, was outside, started screaming at me. What are you doing? Are you a lesbian now? What is wrong with you? Why would you leave me? Like just going on and on. My mom finally came outside and had to force him to leave.
Yeah.
And then I think from there, I think my mom like made me block him and stuff like that. Like I wasn't even allowed to speak to him anymore. But it was easy. The only reason I got away from him was because he got out of school and he was in college and I wasn't forced to see him every day.
Yeah.
So I got some freedom. But yeah, it was mostly just that. Because probably if that had not been the case and we had been in the same grade, I probably would have stayed with him even longer. But I got to get away from him and I wasn't so, I was still terrified, but I wasn't so terrified to leave him anymore.
It's interesting that you say about the sex, because I too felt like it was gross every time.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I too thought that we were gonna get married and have kids, and well, I did have one to him, but like it was just like this fantasy. I think it was the fantasy that I was in love with,
Mhm.
what he put out there, the lies that he put out there. And then another thing about you said whenever you broke up with him and he ran to your house screaming at you. I went through a similar thing. Whenever I like told him, that this is it, I can't do this anymore. Like, there's something wrong with you. I'm not, I'm not down for this. I remember him getting on his knees and like begging me, and I
Mhm.
remember thinking,
So was this guy. Same
yeah,
thing.
you treat me like shit, but now you're gonna beg me to stay with you. And I remember I went up to my room. I was living at my grandma's. I walked up to the house that we had lived in with my mom, and I went into my old bedroom. I got every single thing that he had gave me, drew me, and I threw it all at him. And I remember he like tried to cry, and I was just like, "Don't give me that fake shit. Like I'm not doing it." And then after I said that is when he started yelling like I was the crazy one.
Mhm.
I was wrong for leaving him, and
Mhm.
I'm the one that did stuff to him. And then that's the whole thing turned into him spreading lies about me around town. I would go out to like the bar with my friend, and people would come up and be like, "Why don't you let him see your son?" And why'd you treat him bad? And I'm like, "Listen, there's two sides to every story. I'm not, you take, if you want to take his side, that's you guys's, but I'm not going to sit here and explain the whole, because I mean, he has control of those people anyway.
Mhm.
So there's no point." But it's just very interesting to see how similar these people are,
Mhm.
and how similar, you know, um, the steps that they take in relationships, even whenever you don't know them or know the person that was in a relationship. But it seems like they all sort of have this same mastery over manipulation and instilling fear, and then how similar the actual relationship is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm trying to think back. I genuinely think that the only reason I left was because this friend of mine gave me strength to know like that I could leave because he alienated me from everyone until he went away to college.
Yeah.
Because we spent all the time in summer together, but then when I had to go back to school, I was around other people.
So
So
when he alienated you from your friends, did he like tell you not to talk to them? Because mine was like so secretive. Like before it, in 10th grade, I had like, you know, a group of friends. And I remember him getting mad because every time we walked down the hallway together, they would come up and say hi, and he would get so angry.
Mhm.
But I didn't realize until 12th grade that I had no friends, and I didn't understand why. So like that's really interesting that I guess they're all the same, but then they're all different on how well they conceal it.
Well, I didn't realize he was alienating me from my friends. Like, I never knew until after high school, till years later, that he went up to my best friend and said, "You're not her friend anymore."
Okay.
Apparently, he did that to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he would just he'd get frustrated that I was hanging out with this friend or talking to this friend, and it would become such a headache to even talk to them that I thought, well, it's easier just not to make him mad. So I'll
Yeah.
just not hang out with them anymore because I don't want to make him mad.
Yeah.
And he consumed all my time, so I wasn't able to hang out with anybody else.
That's another thing I was going to ask you was in your relationship, did you feel like you were with him 24/7, like you
Mhm.
couldn't breathe
Mhm.
because he was up your ass 24/7?
Constantly. Like, I had to, I wasn't really allowed to stay in his house, but my mom kind of gave up after a while, and let me stay. Um, but yeah, I had to be there constantly. Like,
Yeah.
we were never at my parents' house. My parents hated him, absolutely
Yeah.
hated him. My dad, one day, I told him, I was like, tell Ryan to leave. I told my parents to a couple times, but they couldn't do anything because I was just so stuck. And I said, tell Ryan to take me to his house. Oh, I just said his name. I didn't mean to say his name. That's not his real name. I said, tell so-and-so to take me to his house right now and get my stuff. Because I try to break up with him constantly. And my dad said, take her right now, get her stuff, and bring her back. And, the same thing happened. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll change. I swear I'll change. I'll be a better person.
Mhm.
There's something wrong with me. Well, yeah, there's something wrong with you. There's
Yeah.
something wrong with you. You need to go get better by yourself. And it was bad because he was diagnosed with bipolar. And I don't think that he's not bipolar. But he's not getting the proper help, and he's such a manipulator because that program that we were in together, I left. I never came back. I came back after I knew he wasn't there anymore,
Yeah.
but I left immediately, and I was terrified to step foot back in it. And like when I got back in, you're not supposed to, but like we were all chit-chatting, not the therapist at all, but the
Yeah.
people in it. Oh, he just said that he has a little bit of an anger issue. Like, he just said that he came for his daughter and this and that. And like, he put on this show, even in this program that we were in, which is a group
Yeah.
therapy program, put on this show that he was this great guy and he just had a little anger issue and this and that. I said, no, he probably, I don't know if he does or not, but he beat the shit out of me. Like,
Yeah.
for no reason at all.
And that's the thing, like they're so well at putting on the mask and um, projecting their fantasy of how they want others to view them that you can't, I mean, for someone to be on the outside, they can't seem to like wrap their head around how this person is so evil. And even like some of my family, he had them like wrapped around his finger to where he had us separated and against each other. And I just think that I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it makes me angry how they put on this act and get people wrapped around their finger. And then when someone comes out to get help or to share what has happened to them, there's people that shame them or that don't believe them because he has them so manipulated and wrapped around. They don't even give that person a chance to tell their story or a chance to like see the side that the other person went through.
Yeah, I think I luckily didn't I dealt with that more with the second guy I was with. Not the second narcissist I was with. I dealt with that
Yeah.
more. Um, People didn't like him because he left and came back so much, but I hid all the stuff that he actually did to me.
Yeah.
Like, he was also physically abusive, but I was physically abusive. We got into a physical altercation one time, and he wouldn't stop. But I also wouldn't stop. So there's no but he blamed me for the physical altercation. Like,
Yeah.
and it was not just my fault. Like, he was trying to choke me out to get me to pass out, and I was defending myself. And I think I was actually with 3 narcissists, if I'm looking back at this, because I know one time someone was, I've been physically abused a lot.
Yeah.
I know one time someone was choking me, someone I was with, and I punched him in the face because he was choking me, because the first guy used to choke me, and I have like a lot of trauma related around that.
Mm.
And he called me an animal. This guy called me an animal because I punched him. Dude, you were choking me.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that happened with the other narcissist I was with, that I never ever touched him again after that. I swore to him. I said, I will never touch you again. And I never did. And he would do it to me. And then he would say, well, it's not as bad as what you, like, I hit him in the head with a coffee mug because he wouldn't stop choking me. And I just picked up the first thing around me and I hit him in the head. And I did give him a black eye because of it. Totally not right, but I was defending myself.
Well, that's the I don't think you need that. Okay, so whenever you say it's not, like, because I feel like you're trying to make excuses for yourself on why, like, that you hit him back, but you were doing self-defense. So I don't think you did anything wrong. And
Yeah.
I think that that's how they get into our heads a lot, because they turn all of, you could like tell them what they did wrong and why you did it, but they turn it around and blame you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always like, I just did it because, he was doing it to me. I I don't know. I just don't think there needs to be explaining of why you did, like, it was self-defense.
Yeah.
You were gonna, like, I don't know if, like, the you were gonna, like, pass out or, like, die from, oh, you said you were gonna pass out, but, like, I don't know if, like, death was on the other end of you know what I mean? But you were defending your life,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's embarrassing to talk about that. I don't
I know,
often
yeah.
tell people that I got in physical altercations with people, but the way I was so defensive because my first boyfriend taught me, I learned from my first relationship to be physical. And then I was so angry after that first relationship that I know, one time I threw a battery at a boyfriend and it was in the dark. I just whipped a battery at him. I was so angry at him. Um,
Mhm.
and it hit him in the face and gave him a black eye. And he like, oh, I just ran into a door, like made a joke out of it. Like, I was so mortified that I did that and so embarrassed that I did that. And he
Yeah.
made sure everybody knew that I did it. He was I've probably been in a relationship with narcissists way more than I think, because I know
Yeah.
that one time I'm just going off on tangents now.
Yeah.
One time I cheated on this boyfriend in particular, not because I wanted to, because I was kind of forced into a situation and I was so weak that I didn't know how to say no.
Yeah.
Um, and I told him the next day immediately because I was mortified and embarrassed. And he made me feel so guilty and so bad and like such trash, and told everybody that I was trash and everybody that I was a slut and everybody that I cheated on. And we had this party that night and he made sure everybody knew that I was like that and got my friends turned against me and everything. Meanwhile, I found out years later that he was cheating on me the entire time we were together.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I knew he was, and people told me, but I didn't want to believe them.
Well, he wanted to be the victim and
Yes.
everything.
Yes, he
Mhm.
wanted to punish me. Um, yeah, so the one time he was choking me, and it was the first time I had been choked after my first boyfriend, and I punched him in the face because he was choking me, and he called me crazy and was like, "You're," said all these names to me, and I was like, "Dude, you were choking me. What do you expect me to do?"
Yeah.
So I think actually, if I think about it, I've probably been with 4 people that were narcissists.
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's easy to get involved with them, especially whenever you go from one relationship to another and you don't heal and you don't understand what you went through and what that person is.
mhm,
And then you get used to it. So that's the only type of, in quotes, love that you know and that you're comfortable with.
mhm.
So I think it's easy to do that, to go from one narcissist to another
Yeah,
when
I
you
definitely.
don't properly, like, heal and understand what's going on, especially if you went through stuff in childhood too, and then you come out of that, getting into your relationship with a narcissist, break up, and then it just goes down the line if you don't stop it.
Yeah, it was basically just one after another. I did date my ex-husband in there for a while, but it was the same way that you said with your husband now, that it was like FOMO, constant fear of missing out.
Hmm.
Well, it's not chaotic. He doesn't hurt me. It's not exciting. This must not be the right kind of relationship.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting divorced. We were really good friends. We probably shouldn't have gotten married. We were really good friends, and we should have probably just stayed friends. But
Yeah.
I was the same way. It just wasn't. It wasn't enough because I was still so toxic, and I wasn't healed yet or healing, because I don't know that I'll ever be healed, or if anybody's ever healed. But I wasn't on my healing journey, so I just wasn't ready for any kind of, I don't want to say normal, but any kind of calm relationship. I was just
Yeah.
waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. And I
Yeah.
thrived off that almost because I was just trained to think like that.
Mm.
So mostly all my relationships have been with narcissists, I would say, except for my ex-husband and the one I'm in now,
Yeah.
which
I
was a
think
lot.
my current husband now, this is the first real relationship that I've had. Um, the one in high school with a narcissist, that's like the full blown out narcissist relationship that I've been in, that really took a toll on me. But I've had other, like, after that, even before that, had little, like, like 6 month relationship where they would treat me like crap and I just like accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the one with my son's dad is the one major one that really did a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
it's very hard whenever you have a child with one too, because they see that child as an object, and they don't, I mean, I hate saying this, but they don't love that child at all. They have no feelings, no empathy, no love toward that child. It's an object. You're either with him in supporting his bad habits and supporting his toxic ways of beings, or you're against him.
mm-hmm.
And they'll do stuff out of spite and just to make you look bad or get under your skin or to hold the child, away from you, to just see you squirm. So it's very tough also.
My daughter's dad also is, I guess I shouldn't even care if he would never listen to this, but um he's the other one that I was talking about in particular. Um,
Mm,
so good at putting on a show, so good at putting on a show, and then making it out to be
yeah.
like it's my fault that
Hmm.
like that things are a certain way. But he does the same thing with Annalise. He usually only wants to get her when he wants to get back together with me.
Yeah.
Um, or when he wants to hold it over my head or whatever. He needs an out of what he's in now. Um,
Or does he do it to like want your daughter to make himself look good? Like when he's around family or friends, like, oh, let me see my kid, let me see my daughter. That's how mine was too.
Yeah. So what he did with me was Annalise's dad actually has 6 kids altogether. And he had 4 before Annalise was born to 2 different women, and um, he was only seeing 2 of them, and he blamed it all on the first 2, their mother and their
Yeah.
grandmother, and that he wasn't seeing them because they wouldn't let him, and this and that and the other thing. Well, I found out when I had Annalise that was totally false, because I begged him to see her for so long because I wanted her to have a dad in her life.
Yeah.
And this was before I met my current boyfriend. Um, but he just didn't want to see her, only wanted to see her if I would have sex with him or whatever, or
Yeah.
like if he could manipulate me or use me in some way, or if he needed something. But it just, he didn't see her for like the first year and a half of her life, and then finally he got another girlfriend, And then he started to see her because he wanted to look good, like he wanted to look good with me, and started getting his older kids again. So he started getting her, and the girl reached out to me one day and said, I think it's really good that you two are putting your differences aside. We don't have any differences. I begged him to see her. I begged him to see her. He just is manipulating you and I didn't say any of this. I was just like, yeah, me too. But he's just manipulating you and making you think these things to make himself look better, which he does with all of his kids' moms.
Yeah.
And all the new girlfriends. He's just a constant. And it makes me, and this is the person, like, it makes me so mad because I know deep down that he could be a good person if he would get help.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really good dad when he's present, and he could be a really good person if he would just get help, but he simply refuses to get help. I've tried to get him to a therapist so many times, and he goes to one session and then doesn't go back anymore, or whatever it is, and like makes all the promises that you're supposed to make and this and that, and it's just like,
I think that's the whole like narcissist behavior. Like they like tell you that they know something's wrong, and then they want to get help, and they go to one session, and if they can't manipulate the therapist, or they don't want to look at themselves, they don't want to see the horrible person that they are, so then they just run out, or if they can't manipulate the therapist, they just want nothing to do with it. um
absolutely.
yeah, I've never tried to get mine like professional help. I don't even think I've mentioned to him like that I know what you are, because I know it's just going to turn into this whole thing, and I'm end up going to get like my mind all rearranged from it. So like I don't even say anything. I'm fortunate enough for him to be locked away for a very long time, but mine did the same thing. He only wanted my son whenever it made him look good, or whenever his mom came in to visit, or he was with friends. And then all the time it was, well, she doesn't let me see him. She ruined my life and did all this and doesn't allow me to see him. And I told him before, I'm like, I've never told you you couldn't see him. I've only told him that he had to come to my house so I could see what he was doing, because I didn't trust him at all. And then when about 2 years ago, my son had came to me and told me some things that he had did to him abusively, and things that he had said. So we decided then to go no contact. It's been difficult because, kids, they always want a relationship with their dad, and he's at that age and he doesn't quite understand. So I'm in between trying to hold space for his emotions and support him, but also trying to explain to him, what a horrible person he is, and think that it's not right. Um, and then I get caught in the middle because I know like people say, well, you shouldn't like tell your kids, how bad the other parent is. Just I don't.
You have
I
to
just
be real though.
I do. That's the whole point. Because I've had people tell me before, like, don't don't tell your son like how he is. He'll find out for himself. But I'm like, he doesn't understand when he's being manipulative. He doesn't understand when he's being manipulated. He doesn't understand when and I see it. The same thing that he's done to me, he was doing to my son.
Well, and then here's the thing that happens too is that, so I don't know what the truth is with my biological father. I don't know whether he's the person that my siblings say he was, or the person that my mom says he was. And I don't know if my mom remembers an idealized version of him, or if
Yeah.
she just doesn't want to tell me the truth. And if you're listening, I love you very much, but I don't know who he really is. And I think if my mom maybe had said, well, he was this kind of person and was real about it, I wouldn't have wanted him in my life so badly. Because hopefully my sisters don't listen to this either. I don't think they will, but when my siblings were more honest about, like, not that he's a bad person, but he had a bad childhood and he doesn't show love very well, and he just, when they were real about it, it made me like, well, maybe I wasn't missing as much. I mean, I still wonder why he doesn't want me, but maybe I wasn't missing as much. So I think it was nice to hear nice to hear an honest opinion on him, as opposed to just my mom, oh, he was great and she gives me things that he gave her and this and that, and not like, it just makes him, it paints him in this picture of being this wonderful man, when in reality he was doing a bad thing. He wasn't really that great of a person in
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah. And they
So,
can do that a lot. They can have, like, they can pin parents and children against each other. I know my son's his siblings, like, they are the ones that accept his behavior, condone it, run with it, and put up with it. And my son would come back and tell me everything. So he's the one that gets, like, shamed and all that. And it's heartbreaking how these kids are growing up, and it's heartbreaking that I can't do anything, because these are like little kids that they don't they're so young, and they don't understand what's going on. They don't know how to process it, or they don't even have a chance.
mhm.
So that breaks my heart. But they do, like, they could have your whole family, like, pinned against each other, or one family member thinks, this person is so great and does everything for me, and meanwhile, like, another kid's like, I get beat on all the time,
Mhm.
you know. So
Yeah, I would all I'm going to tell Annalise is that your daddy's sick. Your daddy's
yeah,
really sick, and he wasn't ready to get better for you.
yeah,
Like, which is true. He's really sick, and he just doesn't want to. He's just not in a place where he can get better. And like um, he in his own, I still lets me manipulated me into dropping child support and all that, and I did. And I want to say that I did it because I just didn't want to. He wasn't paying anyway, but I want to say that I did it because um, he. I didn't want him to have that control over me. But at the same time, I did it because he was asking me to do it, and he's my daughter's dad, and I don't want to hurt my daughter's dad and all that. So,
yeah,
still something that I'm working on. But like, I'm just mostly trying. What she has now is better than anything that he could ever offer.
yeah,
So even if it's just me, like if my boyfriend now and I break up, which I don't think we will, or and pray that we don't ever, but if we do, like, it's just better just for it to be us,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
healthier.
I
So
remember being at a point where I didn't want to tell my son the truth, because, that was his dad, and I didn't want to bust his bubble, and I wanted him to have his own feelings about his dad. But then on the other side, I'm just like, as a mother, it's my job to protect my son.
hmm
And if that's telling him the truth and hurting his feelings and him being mad at me, then that's what I'm going to have to go through.
yeah.
Because I'd rather him be mad at me than be in that situation and go through the crap that I have went through.
So I guess a lot of mine too is either laziness or not want. Mostly it's laziness. I don't. Annalise is too young to understand right now. Anyway,
Yeah,
she doesn't know the difference. If she won't know for a while, but me just saying, okay, he's sick, um, is easier than me having to say, well, this is the kind of person he is.
yeah,
So probably when she gets older, I'll be able to. I'll explain it to her more and
yeah.
get over
And
that laziness.
that would be really good to explain, well, in my opinion, to explain to her the truth and how he is, because I kind of think if you tell her that he's just sick and doesn't want to get help, then she doesn't understand what manipulation is and how they get into your head.
Mhm.
And then she could potentially go into a relationship like that.
Which I don't
She
want. Yeah.
has no understanding or no knowledge
Yeah.
on what it is.
Yeah. So I'll. Luckily, she's still too young.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I didn't start telling my son until this year, and he's 12.
oh, good. I have lots of time.
So, yeah. Yeah, don't panic yet.
I have lots of time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, anything else?
Um, nope. I think that's it. Yeah.
So, hopefully, you don't have a Facebook page yet, do you? Right?
I have my personal Facebook
Okay.
page. Yeah.
So hopefully, you'll have a business Facebook page in shortly
Yeah.
and all that. But
Yeah.
right now, if people want to reach out to you, what do they need to look up online?
I would say my Instagram. It's key_Bradshaw is the easiest place because that's where I do a lot of my like business things on.
KEY_BRADSHAW.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, you can find her there. And then you do pretty amazing readings also, right?
Yeah, it's kind of I call them spiritual advisor sessions, but it's kind of a mix of guidance with mediumship.
Yeah.
Whether it's mediumship from a loved one or mediumship, with your spiritual guides, whatever comes through to get you on your path and overcome obstacles on your journey.
Yeah. And I just did one the other day and it was pretty awesome.
Right.
I actually wish, you know what I figured out, that I could have recorded our session and rewatched it.
Oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
that's something in the future. But yeah, so if you're looking for that, and then the next episode, this episode will be up Tuesday. Well, it's already up if you're listening to it, obviously. So Tuesday the 7th, we'll have this episode air, and then the following episode will air Tuesday the 21st, and that one's going to be on spiritual awakening linked to mental health, which I think is really important because we've talked about this, but I feel like since
Mhm.
I don't think that medication is a bad thing at all. I think it saved my life, but definitely since I started medication, I kind of have lost a little bit of my intuition. I feel like
Yeah.
it's harder for me to get in touch with it and my creativity. Um, so I definitely think that there is a relationship with being spiritually awakened and being diagnosed with a mental health diagnoses.
Yeah.
And not that we are not going to knock mental health diagnoses. We're not going to say that it's wrong to get on medication or to do things like that. This is totally like Key's opinion and mine and all that. And no matter what, I always think you should seek out some kind of professional help, whether it
Mhm.
be a therapist or whatever it is or whatever you need.
Yeah.
And this is just our opinions on things. So, and what we've been through and, how we've gotten through things. So you can look forward to that episode coming up in the coming weeks, but find her on Instagram and follow her there. And if you have any other questions, reach out to me and I'll get you a hold of her in any way I can. And is there anything else that you can think of?
I don't think so.
All
Mm-mm.
right. So that's it for episode 30 of Healing Whole, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, which was, I feel, very deep and very personal, I enjoyed it a lot. It's scary to get personal. I don't often get personal on
Yeah.
podcasts. I do
I
get personal about my own story, but not about people in my story.
yeah. I told my husband before this, I'm like, I'm a little nervous. Like I haven't told my actual story with being with a narcissist to anyone but him.
Yeah.
Because he kind of he knew before I even knew. He would tell me little things, but I remember him saying, "Well, you got to tell your story because it'll help other people." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take a picture of us on here and then we'll put it on Instagram. But yeah, so if you liked this episode, if you enjoyed it at all, leave a comment on iTunes, leave a review. It all helps. Or if you're on YouTube, you can follow me on YouTube. It's just Callie Tony CPT and find all the episodes over there as well as some other free resources. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you all for joining me for another episode of Healing Whole, the podcast. I will see you next time.